Countdown is on to the 2022 draft. Philadelphia Eagles on the clock twice. We're here to talk about it for the next 2 hours. And Howie Roseman is up today to talk about it as well. We'll give you our thoughts over the next two. And then, yes, tomorrow we'll have many thoughts on what Howie Roseman has to say. Jody McDonald, John McMullen, your Mac and Macbirds 365 guys. MacMan, you've been covering the league for a long time, Eagles specifically the last several years here in town. Is Howie Roseman going to tip his hand today? Is he going to come out and pull a Ben McAdoo moment, say something he isn't supposed to say, and then go, oh, by the way, can we erase the tape that you guys have about what the Birds are going to do at 15 or 18?
Howie's way too savvy for that. He's been doing this for way too long. He actually, I always joke about Howie and how he likes to joke, and I think he wanted to be a stand-up comedian at some point in his life when he was younger, but he bombs. The jokes never land, and he never gets a reaction, but he keeps trying. So, got you, Howie, with the jokes, but he has joked in the past that he's called certain positions in certain years. He's used the term historical, and it hasn't. It's kind of bit him in the butt just from that perspective. Just from, being very generalized. So he even tries to cut down that now. I know he mentioned back at I think it was the combine. People asked him about the edge rushers and how good the class was at the top. And he kind of mentioned that about getting bitten in the past. But yeah, I mean, hopefully, it's how he's going to speak today. Hope Andy Weidel as well. I assume will be there. Typically, it's all three. We'll see. Maybe the Steelers' interest in Andy Weidel turns the Eagles in a different direction. But, it should be more than Howie as well. But nobody's going to tip their hand. So you try to get more big picture answers than anything else.
All right, so we'll start there. Do you read into it that if Andy Weidel isn't at today's press availability, that he is all but a lock to get the Steeler general manager? He's in the mix to get the. You can't ask him a question about it. You ask Howie, but you know what his answer is going to be. Yeah, I can't comment on that.
No, I think he'll be there. I just throw that.
If he's not, my question is, if he's not, what are you reading into it?
Small possibility that they don't want to deal with but I mean, he's savvy enough too to just deflect it. And, Jonathan Gannon went through this at the end of the regular season when it was pretty clear he's going to start getting some interest as a potential head coach. And those guys are, that's why the PR staff is there. They're, hey, this is coming. Be ready for this. Be ready for that. So I assume he's going to be there. But if he's not, maybe you can read a little bit into something. But, Pittsburgh, they've interviewed so many different people. I think the last number I saw ago was up to 12. I know there's a reporter out there, Jerry Dulac, who said he's the leader in the clubhouse. He's pretty plugged in. So I think that kind of sped things up, but I think it was more speculation. He wasn't reporting it. He did it during a chat. And, Andy's a Pittsburgh guy and his first job was in Pittsburgh. So I think it was more speculation than anything else. But see, I think, I don't know from your perspective, Jody, and I'll spin it back on you and ask what you want to hear. What I want to hear from the group is, how they've handled this whole process with losing Brandon, with losing Ian Cunningham, and then you have the speculation surrounding Andy Weidel. But, fans are obviously going to want to know, do the Eagles like, Jordan Davis? Do they like Drake Ludden or Garry? Well, they're not going to do that. I mean, they're not going to do that. I don't know how many years you got to go through this process. They're not going to say, hey, we're going to draft this guy if he's there. I mean, that's not how this works, but people still want it. I don't know.
It would be, that's how we would like it to work, but it's not the way in actuality that it works. One last Andy Weidel question. grabbing this position at this time. This happened for another former Eagles executive as well. When Joe Douglas went to the Jets, they let the general manager stick around. And this was Pittsburgh, at least it was understandable because the GM said, listen, I want to retire. Over had done a good job for him and said, listen, I'm stepping away. I won't leave the organization in a lurch. I'm not going to quit. Just as free agency is going to start, I'll stay all the way through the draft, but know full well come May 1st, I plan to be out the door. So you're going to need to replace me accordingly. That was not the case with the Jets a couple of years ago. The Jets had their general manager in place, let him stick around, make all the free agent moves, let him stick around and run the draft. And then shortly after the draft came down, they said, all right, never mind, you're fired. And Joe Douglas jumped in and took the job. Is that a better position to be in or a lesser position to be in? Because certainly the results of the next year aren't on you. They're on the previous general manager. He made all the moves. He committed all the money. He okayed all the draft picks. So is it the free year that you would like, or do you want to get, hey, if I'm going to jump in and take this job, let me get to it right away, not have to watch somebody else's players play for a year? That's what Andy Weidel is looking at it. Better position to be in or a lesser position to be in because it's not the way it's usually done?
I would think better. I would think it's better to get your feet on the ground and evaluate what you have and have some time and before. And, you know, Pittsburgh's a pretty football market as well. You have a bit of a honeymoon period that's going to end pretty quickly, especially in an organization. I mean, you mentioned the Jets. The Jets are fans are football rabid as well, but they're used to not having success. Pittsburgh's not used to not success. So you better get that thing. And you don't have a quarterback. Remember, your Hall of Fame quarterback is leaving, and you're planning, and I put that in quotations, on Mitchell Trubisky replacing Ben Roethlisberger. So I don't think it's going to be good in the short term. But from a common sense perspective, I think it would be a better situation where you had a chance to evaluate what you have. Is all the new GMs right now who came in, you know, in January, and the draft is in April, and they basically got to get to it. You know, because generally only when you change GMs, you're not only changing the GMs, you're also changing at least a portion of the staff as well. They want to bring in their own guys. And so you have all these new people trying to get on the same page, trying to evaluate what they have in the building, what they need, all that kind of stuff. And there's just not enough time in the day. And you saw it in a scaled back way because the coaching staff isn't as involved until late in the process when it comes to the draft. But you had it here in Philadelphia last year with the changeover in the coaching staff, and you know, you're drafting players for one guy and his group of coaches, and then all of a sudden you got to change up. So all that stuff is difficult. But I would think, you know, having a chance to get your feet underneath you is always better.
I would say one of the pluses of the Steeler job is, you and I have discussed on many occasions the fact that patience can be a good thing. That if an organization is willing to stick with something and isn't always looking for the greener side of the grass and ready to make changes and flip things, that if you stay the course, sometimes that can be very productive. And there's no better example of that than the Pittsburgh Steelers in the NFL. They just don't make big changes. The coaching position is the one that stands out more than any. 3 coaches over the last 50 years. But the front office as well. They haven't been a team that drastically changes up there either. So if he gets a gig, he's stepping into a pretty good gig. All right, so Howie's going to meet with the media during the 11 o'clock hour today. You jumping on the Zoom?
No, it's live. It's live. So I've got to head down. As soon as I get up here, I'll pretty much head down to the NovaCare complex.
Got you. You'll beat it on over there. Don't know if you're going to ask it, but I hope someone asks it today. There was a report out yesterday that the New Orleans Saints are going to meet with Jarvis Landry. As far as I know, Jarvis Landry has not met with any team since being released by the Cleveland Browns. There was one media report out there that said Jarvis thinks himself a top wide receiver in the league and should be paid accordingly, not Tyreek Hill type money, but you want to nudge up to Tyreek as quickly or as close as you can, and he's throwing out a $20 million per year offer. I like Jarvis Landry. I'd like to see Jarvis Landry in a Philadelphia Eagle uniform. He's not a $20 million a year player. This is one where I won't question the Eagles' commitment to get into the deep end of the pool. If it's $20 million, shake his hand, wish him luck. I don't know that I'd be making him that kind of offer, but there have been no reports whatsoever that the Eagles have even talked to him or investigated what he's looking for this upcoming year. The Saints he's going into New Orleans to meet with them. Is it the food? If you want to go down there for better eats, we got some damn fine restaurants right here in Philadelphia. Maybe not New Orleans restaurants, but damn good restaurants just the same. You can't tell me Jameis Winston is that much a bigger draw than Jalen Hurts. You can't tell me the first-year coach Dennis Allen is someone you have to go play for rather than Nick Sirianni. I'm probably putting the cart before the horse here. The Eagles haven't lost the player, and he hasn't signed with the Saints yet. But why wouldn't the Eagles be in on Jarvis Landry if the New Orleans Saints are?
Well, why wouldn't they be? We talked about patience being a good thing, a virtue at times. It could also be a bad thing at times if you're overly patient. I'd call it overly disciplined. Look, they need a receiver. They need a receiver. They need a veteran receiver. From the Eagles standpoint, they've kind of shifted their sentiment from we need a veteran receiver, what I just said, to, oh, look what these veteran receivers are getting paid. We might as well just go the young route and get another young receiver, have them cost effective for 4 years or 3 years, 4 years, whatever. I think that's where they're at now. If the market isn't there, now you said, why would Jarvis Landry? I mean, where did he go to school? Same thing with the Honey Badger. Jarvis is from Louisiana. What have the Eagles been able to do in free agency? Well, they signed Hassan Reddick. Where's Hassan Reddick from? He's from Camden. They signed Kaiser White. Where's Kaiser White from? He's from Macungie in Lehigh County. Sometimes it's as simple as that, and you don't even have to get to, well, Jameis Winston isn't better than Jalen Hurts, or Jameis Winston is better than Jalen Hurts. But I would say from a wide receiver standpoint, even if you throw all that stuff out, Jody, Jameis Winston once threw for 5,000 yards in this league. Now, he also threw for 5,000 interceptions. I mean, but if you're throwing for 5,000 yards and he's healthy, again, as a passer, purely as a passer, and purely as a standpoint, we always talk about wide receiver being the most selfish position in sports. Yeah, I mean, the Saints even have the advantage there. But I would think in the case of Landry and those LSU guys, man, they run deep, and
then
they never leave.
How do the Saints not win the Super Bowl every year with every LSU guy?
Well, you can't
looking to migrate home to the Bayou.
You can't just declare I would go there, but if you have an opportunity to go there, I'm just throwing it out there. You saw the same thing happen in Philadelphia. A couple guys who from the area wanted to come home. Same thing happens in other parts of the country. But if you have
what you're telling me is we now all need to start rooting more heartily for Temple going forward, because the only way the Eagles can upgrade their roster is getting free agents who played in Philadelphia, originally from Philadelphia, because drove through Philadelphia at one time during their life count for a recruiting inducement tool to get them to sign free agent contracts.
I'm saying it helped them this year in the situation they are, which I've called a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're the ones saying it's a transition year last year. It's a building year. They're the ones saying we're not ready. I'm not the one who use it all the time, but they're the ones saying it. The fan base is the one saying it. I'm not the one saying it. And that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's where they are right now. Now, Jarvis strikes me as the guy who, quite honestly, give him one more dollar, he's going to go there. So the Eagles could pay the penalty, so to speak, and pay the tax, but they don't seem interested in the player, probably because of the price tag or the price tag. Now, you can debate on whether these players, I got in a Twitter thing about Deebo Samuel last night because it looks like Deebo Samuel wants out of San Francisco, and people don't understand. They're saying money. Yeah, duh. I know he wants money. The assumption is San Francisco will give him the money, and he still wants out of San Francisco, which makes sense to me because I've been telling you, Cody, guess what? If you get Deebo Samuel, you're not getting Kyle Shanahan. So you better have a coach willing to utilize him the way the San Francisco 49ers have utilized him. It's always amazing, and we're going to have Cobb, a former NFL player, after the break. It's always amazing to me the player's mentality at times, and that Deebo doesn't seem to recognize that all coaches aren't created equal, all teams. And, if he's just going to line up and play receiver, he's not Deebo Samuel anymore.
Here's where I think Deebo's at. And I read the same things that you read, but I haven't talked to Deebo Samuel, and Deebo Samuel hasn't been quoted. So this is just a guesstimation on your part, my part. He wants to go to a superstar quarterback market. Green Bay Packers. He'd probably like to go play with Aaron Rodgers. Yes, Jalen Hurts, unproven still. Hasn't had a bust-out year, but he's looking at either a rookie quarterback second year, but his first time ever starting, and or an injured Jimmy Garoppolo throwing the football again next year. No, yeah, he's first. He wants to get paid like the other superstar wide receivers, get into the neighborhood of the Tyreek Hills and the Devontae Adams. But on top of that, I think he wants to dictate, I want to go somewhere where I've got a top 5 quarterback throwing me the football. That's not San Francisco, but unfortunately, it's not Philadelphia either. So I'm not holding my breath for Deebo Samuel. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. Mac and Mac, guys. As John just teased you, Cobb, Garry Cobb, former NFL linebacker, contributor for Fox 29 here in town. We got a G spot coming up next here on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today, and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Birds 365 here when you're on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Go ahead, hit that like button, share, and subscribe to Birds 365. Because we get guys like Garry Cobb to come on with us, which is always our pleasure. He lends insight whenever he jumps aboard. Contributor for Fox 29. Get his football thoughts at gcobb.com. We're going to get him here today. How you be, G?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to this draft. And, of course, everybody's talking and there's a lot going on. So you got a lot of things going on in the NFL. Seems like maybe it's more active during the offseason with all of the wheeling and dealing. And, of course, it's a quarterback league.
Yeah, it is, G. It's always, I tell, my wife, we've been together for a long time, G, and she asked me, to do this and around the house and these. And I tell her every year, the off season is busier than the regular season. She doesn't believe me. She does not believe me, but I'm not lying when it comes to all the wheeling and dealing. So before we get the draft, G, I want to start with some of that wheeling and dealing. And I don't know if you heard before when you were in the green room, Jody and I were talking about player sentiment and they're picking when they're getting recruited at the professional level, so to speak. And they're going to pick a team and they have some options. It doesn't seem like the Eagles are on the top of that list these days. Why do you think that is?
As I said, it's a quarterback league. It's a quarterback-driven league. And I think that you have, different players who figure, hey, if I'm with a better quarterback, it's going to make life easy for me. And I heard you talking about Deebo Samuel. He is a special guy, and I do think that his coach and the way he's able to utilize him, I think it makes him, this almost like this new position where you got a wide receiver who they put in the backfield, and he's a running back too, so he's kind of like a combination of the two. And the way they utilize him, I mean, they do a great job with the way they utilize him. I don't know that he's going to be utilized like that somewhere else, because you got to have a very creative coach to be able to do that. And I don't think he appreciates, the way they utilize him. So, but, the star is always brighter somewhere else. He feels like he goes somewhere else and life's going to be easier on him. I don't know if he's right, but I don't blame him for going for the money, though. I mean, I don't blame that part of it. But sometimes guys don't realize and don't appreciate where they're at. And I just think they just do an amazing job of utilizing him in San Francisco. The way he is able to, the guy can just take over a game like few people can. And the way they utilize him there, they allow him to do that. And I think it's just astonishing the way that he is so versatile. He is a special player.
G-Cobb, we're a couple years removed from your playing days, but the thing that I have to wrap my head around on a day-in, day-out basis is how much the players actually do dictate terms these days. We get it. You become a free agent, you get to pick or choose wherever you want to go. You don't have to wait to be a free agent anymore. You can speak your mind. You get your message out via social media. You can leak information to media guys, and you can dictate where you're going to go. And that's what Deebo Samuel and others are trying to do. They didn't do that when G. Cobb was in the National Football League, did they?
It's changed. I mean, it's amazing how far it's changed in that you have players that are able to do that. Now, a marquee quarterback might have been able to do some of that. With, of course, what John Elway did, when he was drafted and
good point,
different things like that. But you didn't see that anywhere else, and once you got into the league, they dictated to you rather than you dictating to them. And you just did not have a lot of players doing that. Now it just seems like there's so many players that if you're a Pro Bowler, if you're a star player, you can pretty much just tell, whatever you want, where you want to play at, how much you want to be utilized. It's amazing that the way it is, but it's a different league. I mean, the way the passing game, of course, is the most important part of the game, and you see that all of the players that affect the passing game are revered. They are very important because if you're a pass rusher, if you're a corner who covers the pass, if you're a wide receiver, if you're a quarterback, that's where, those guys make the big bucks. And of course, the people that protect the quarterbacks, everything is about the passing game, and the most important of that is the quarterback. And so that's why here I thought that what happened with Howie getting an extension, I think that was an important part of what the Eagles' strategy is. With him getting an extension, you notice immediately he moves draft picks back a year, kind of putting himself in position so that next year he can go after a quarterback. So it's interesting the way all these things work out, but everything is about the quarterback, and you just kind of have to look and see the strategy. It's and you got to be right. If you're a good drafter, that's probably the most important quality is you can go find talent, because if you can go find talent, you can always replenish. And we're going to see whether Kansas City is able to do that, because to trade a guy like Tyreek Hill, I mean, a guy who's hasn't, slipped up at all, and you trade him, that's amazing. But they feel confident they can find other talent.
Gee, one more question about the player empowerment thing before we get to the weeds of the draft with you. And that's a guy who you played a long time, as Jody mentioned, different era, but now you've had your foot in with us, the direct in the media, the well-liked media. So you sort of got foots in both camp. Now, when you look at it just in general for the NFL, you think player empowerment is a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I think it's probably a bad thing now, because you got, the people in NFL, even more than any other sports league, are young. That's one of the reasons that in some of the negotiations that young players don't think anything about healthcare. We don't really have healthcare in this violent sport where you don't have long-term healthcare. And I know I felt that way when I was a young player. My first year in the league, after we play a game, you go like, what's the big deal? Why can't we play another game tomorrow? You feel like that. But of course, after you play a number of years, you don't recover till later in the week. And then late in your career, you don't really recover. So things change. And because we have young players, they don't think like, veteran guys. Baseball's different because they have older players. After somebody's been in the league a while in their season, they think differently. And because we have such young players, it really affects the mindset and really affects the whole league. And that's why, things are set up the way they are right now.
All right,
and will always be.
JAKIB, what is the significance of the number 247 to you?
Oh, boy, that's the number 247, the significance of it. 247.
247.
You got me.
With the in the 9th round with the 247th pick, the Dallas Cowboys select Cobb, linebacker, USC.
I never really. I did.
That's like 1-9. Garry, everybody knows that. That's like
that one got me. I guess so. That's
the reason why I did that, not to make you look bad, was just to ask a question about what it was like waiting to hear your name picked. You know, you're hoping to go to the National Football League. You don't know which team, when you're going to be drafted. It ended up being the 9th round for you, which seems like a long way, seeing as they only had 7 rounds in the draft now. They had 9 back in 1979. But you did get picked by the Cowboys, spent 10 years in the league. So it was a success. But what was it like for you on draft day?
Well, of course, it was exciting. Wound up being where, it kind of just had to wait and wait and wait. But it's exciting for everybody. It wasn't like it is now where they had all of the media there, and you had the first day and the second day and everything. So it wasn't the same hype. You really didn't have the communication that you have now. So, you were excited, but it's not nearly like it is now where you got the whole nation watching. And, the NFL's done such a great job of making it such an event that everybody's there watching. It wasn't like that there. I mean, I think I was in class when somebody had called the house, but I had class and I might have been working out.
You didn't get a text on your phone in class at USC in 1979? They weren't blowing up your phone, JAKIB?
No,
I'm surprised they let you go to class, JAKIB.
There was no phone. Well, I didn't have to go to class, but I did.
Way to go, G.
But the thing was, it just was not the same hype. The football people were communicating about that. Over at the football office and everything, guys were talking about who went and all that. But around the campus, it wasn't like it is now. It wasn't the media thing. So football people were interested, but it wasn't. You didn't have like this event, like where you got this national show and everything. It's so much different now. And then, of course, you're talking about something that was, look how many years ago it was, 40 some years ago. So things have changed. It just wasn't the same. It was a big deal for me, but it wasn't a national event and everything. And it was just the football people around the USC campus. Wasn't even the whole campus that even knew about it. So it was nowhere near the same as it is now.
Understood.
Yeah, it has exploded. It's become a cottage industry. So let's start talking about the draft now, JAKIB. And you mentioned something about the passing game, which is true. In this league, you either get the quarterback in the modern NFL or you get to the quarterback. So everybody wants quarterbacks. They want pass rushers. They want receivers. They want runners. As you mentioned, nobody. I tell Jody all the time. Nobody cares about the running game. It's April 20th. And by the way, happy certain day to a certain segment that enjoys 420 for people who get that. That wouldn't be me, but happy, if you're one of those people, not you, JAKIB, I'm saying to the listeners, enjoy the day.
Yeah,
but overall, when you talk about, there might not be a running back that goes until the 3rd round of this draft. People have speculated. As a linebacker, we're constantly talking about Jerry Robinson this time of year. 1979. That's the last time the Eagles have taken an off-ball linebacker in the 1st round of the draft. Yet December rolls around, and all of a sudden, everybody needs to stop the run. Why has it been devalued to the point it has been devalued?
Well, everything in the, you have trends. That's what happens in the NFL. Coaches copy each other. They're very insecure. It's a kind of position where, you never really know until things happen. So you don't want to be caught napping, as they say. So I think a lot of teams, a lot of coaches, they want to make sure that, they're either ahead of the wave or they're going the way everybody else is going. Now you'll have some teams and some coaches who will say, you know what? I don't mind being the odd guy. So I don't mind being a run-based team. I mean, if you look at Shanahan, we mentioned him. He's always, they believe in the run. His dad believed in the run. They still believe in the run, and and they've had success. But most coaches are going to go the way the wave is going, and it's all about passing game, throw the ball more, how much you can throw the ball. So that's why the whole thing with the running back too. The big thing is with the running back, they got the ball all the time. There's a chance of injury. They're getting hit all the time. If they get injured, then you got your top picks sitting over there. I don't think it makes sense to get running backs early because they get hurt. A lot of times you got a quality running back and he plays, let's say, first 5 years. Now he's worn out. He's really not the same player anymore. We've seen that. When we see that with so many running backs, that if you feed the ball to him a lot, he's not going to be around. But drafting backs, I see where I think a lot of coaches believe that we draft running backs late, and we get a number of them. We can always swap them around, and they just don't value running backs like they did in the past, where you got a running back who is the feature of your offense. They really don't feature running backs in the offense where the running back's going to carry the ball over 20 times. Very few running backs carry the ball over 20 times. Think about it. Most of the time they got a shared role, and you've got two running backs, and they're sharing the ball, and they're young, because they get hurt, and an old running back is not worth very much because most of the time, they're banged up. They don't have the same burst they used to have. And so I understand where running backs are not valued as much. I would really like to see the NFL where you got a marquee running back where they're able to make their money earlier, because if they don't make it early, a lot of times they don't make it because they get banged up, and it's the kind of position where you really get beat up because the ball is a magnet. You got that ball here, everybody's coming. And, like Ezekiel Elliott, he got his money. He's not worth it now.
No, it's not.
I mean, he's really not worth it because he doesn't have the burst he used to have. So, I'm surprised they utilize him as much because the other kids they have in that offense, they get through to the hole and through the hole. And I think at times Dallas doesn't realize they don't have the same running game because Ezekiel Elliott is not the same back he used to be because he doesn't have the burst he used to have. I can clearly see it. And I think a lot of running backs, a veteran running back, it just, they just can't get it done anymore.
There's something to be said for that old tread on the tires line that people use. The tread gets in. You're just not as fast as you used to be. I want to tap into, again, a guy who went through it, played in the league, played for several different coaches. I want to ask you about the current Eagles coach. Nick Sirianni comes in, rookie head coach last year, seemed to have won over the locker room. Eagles have a winning record, make the playoffs. Now he's going into his second draft. He was Eagles coach last year prior to the draft, but as a rookie guy, I don't think he had a lot of sway. He had a lot of swag in draft room last year. How much more do you think he does this year? The guys he's got to impress are Howie, Roseman, and Jeff Lurie and the other executives with the Eagles, that when he says something in the draft room on draft day, are they going to listen or go, okay, let's get back to what we're going to do? How much of an impact do you think the head coach is going to have in this upcoming draft for the Birds this year?
Now, because they had a winning season, I think that he's going to have some impact. And I think he thinks along the way Howie thinks, which is what I was saying about the passing game, and the fact that the passing game is the most important part of the game right now in the NFL. So I do think he's going to be able to, have some say. But ultimately, Howie is making the call. I think that he's going to stay with his system. And as I said, I think they pretty much agree. I think that's one of the reasons he was brought in here is, he was a wide receiver coach, and he's into the passing game. I don't think that they're where they would like to be in the passing game. So that's why, they still got the question mark over Jordan, over Jalen Hurts. They still got a question mark over him because they do not have the advancement of that passing game the way really Nick would like and the way Howie would like, because they both believe that the passing game is number one. And so I think that they are going to have, that Nick is going to have influence because he thinks like Howie does. So he'll be able to, let's say, talk about which wide receiver he likes the most. They know that's his expertise. It's a position he used to coach. So I think he'll have something to say about that. And at defensive back, he'll be able to say something about that because, when you coach the wide receivers, you're always looking at defensive backs too. So that kind of goes together. So I think that he'll be able to have some say about that. But ultimately, Howie and his gang are going to make the call. And I think they are going to, probably you're looking at, a cornerback, a defensive lineman, or a wide receiver. That's probably who they're going to get in this draft.
All right, G, let's talk about the quarterback because you bring up good points with the passing game, not only locally with Nick Sirianni and what he was brought in to do, but also the way the league thinks as a whole. So when Howie kicked the can down the road, as you mentioned, after the extension, kicks the 1 first-round pick into next year, it told most of us that, hey, he doesn't like the quarterbacks this year, so he's going to push it back and look at the quarterbacks next year, who at least early on look like a better class, and we'll see how that shakes out. A lot of things can happen. Ultimately, though, it does give you that sort of foreshadowing. They still don't believe in Jalen Hurts, no matter what they say in front of when a microphone shows up. The old adage is, don't listen to what they say, it's what they do. And the Eagles checked in on Russell Wilson. Oh, he doesn't want to play on the East Coast. Deshaun Watson, we know, gets the first 5-year fully guaranteed contract in NFL history. So, the Eagles are probably outbid, even if he would consider playing for him, and he wouldn't. Can Jalen Hurts do anything to win this job? Or is he not the type of quarterback, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, and I'll even throw Jeffrey Lurie, want to lead their organization?
Well, I think he could be, but he's got to make a major improvement. Look at the Tampa Bay game. He wasn't seeing the field. He couldn't see the field. They were taking advantage of the fact that, he can't see, looking and saying, if you ask him, what coverage are they in, Jalen? Can you see what coverage they're in? I don't think he knew and was able to decipher what coverage are they utilizing against me, and those are the things you've got to be able to do as a quarterback. You got to be able to see, and that way you know where you're going with the ball. Then you've got to be able to be accurate. It's more important to be accurate than to be able to have this howitzer, because you got to be able to throw that ball accurately. And you look at the marquee quarterbacks, they come up to the line of scrimmage, guys like, of course, the best, where, with Brady and Mr. MVP over there in Green Bay, they come up to the line of scrimmage, they look right away, they know what coverage you're in. They already know what coverage you're in, they know immediately. The time they get the ball, they already know where to go on the ball, and then they're very accurate. Those two areas are where he needs to improve greatly in order to be that quarterback. Now, if I were, to say, well, do I say he gets a thumbs up this year or not? I would probably say no. He's not going to shower them with such an improvement that they're going to say, well, they shouldn't get a marquee quarterback if there's one they can get in the draft next year. Because a lot of this is just, it's intuitive. It's something a lot of times either a guy has it or he doesn't. You might be able to develop it over time, but to see the field, to be able to recognize a coverage so quickly, it's like a gift, and some guys can do it, some can't. And then the whole accuracy thing is something that you work on, but the accuracy is the most important part of a passer because If you're not accurate, you're going to throw interceptions. You're going to miss guys. They're going to be incompletions. So that's going to cost you on third down. Now you're giving up the ball just because you couldn't get that ball there accurately. So, right now, I clearly, like they can say that they love them all they want. Why did they move to next year? Because there are players that are available this year, but not that marquee quarterback. See, that's what's not in this draft. That quarterback that they say, boy, and the kid down in Alabama, kid plays like a pro now. He sees the field, very accurate. He's got those qualities. You can see it in him right away. So I haven't seen that in Jalen, that where he's able to recognize the coverage all the time, and he's able to make that throw, and then he's accurate. He make the accurate throw. So he'll be able to get better, but to see the huge jump over 1 year, chances are, he's not going to make that big of a jump.
G, you mentioned three positions where the Eagles could use some help, could use some upgrading: cornerback, wide receiver, defensive line. I want to go D-line on you because I know you understand D-line can absolutely help those linebackers. You stay clean, you make plays. The guys up front occupying blockers makes your life easier. So I know you zero in on that when you watch a game.
Yeah.
What has Fletcher Cox got left in the tank?
Not much. Not much. He really hasn't been, I thought it was just a matter of stamina. Maybe they're playing him too many snaps and everything, but he's just not giving them much. Even when they get to the point where they're single blocking him, he's not doing what he used to do, which is if you single blocked him, he was going to take over the game, So really, I was surprised they gave him the money they gave him, because what is it, like $14 million he's making,
Right.
Even though they clearly are saying, hey, you're not the player you were, for them to give him that, I was surprised, because I figure they're going to this draft and they're looking at, those two kids from in Georgia, either one of them, what's it, Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt. Davis is going to be gone. I mean, the kid Wyatt is a player too. So I would think that they would try to get him if he's on the board when they draft. And they still value, of course, they're going to make sure they, have one of the best defensive lines in the league. That's what they're trying to do. So if one of those guys is there, they're going to try to improve their defensive line. But Fletcher Cox is not the player he once was, and unfortunately, he's nowhere near it. So I don't see. Like I said, I was surprised that they gave him the money they gave him.
All right, last one from me, Garry, and you can follow Garry on Twitter at Garry Cobb. Read him online, gcobb.com. See him on the television screen with Box 29. I want to end it with linebacker as well, Garry. So the Eagles brought in a Kaiser White, and I want to know, as old school linebacker, do you even recognize these king-size safeties they bring in, these hybrids every looking for? And do you feel a soft spot when you see a kid like TJ Edwards, sort of that 240-pound old school linebacker who can go seek and destroy?
Of course, I love to see good linebacker play. And it's really, it's the sign of the times where, you don't see, the Eagles, of course, it's been since 1979, since they drafted a linebacker in the first round. And you're probably going to go another year, even though, there is a chance they could get the Devin Lloyd, who is a special player. And I think that there is a time when you should draft a linebacker in the first round, because if you got a guy who has got that elite speed, that means he's got to be like 4.5, maybe 4.4. He's got to be able to run with the tight ends, the running backs, even wide receivers sometimes. Where if you have a marquee guy, he can make a difference there in the middle. But if the guy doesn't have that type of speed, then sometimes he becomes a liability. But I really would like to see, the Eagles, I wouldn't mind seeing them grab a linebacker early, because I think you need to have a playmaker there at that position. The guy's got to be making a lot of plays, and he's got to have that linebacker instinct where when you got good linebackers, they're always around the ball. They're always making tackles. And you just have to make sure that, they can cover pass-wise now because, the game has changed. Most of the time, you got 3 wide receivers on the field all the time. So it really is got to be a guy that can run. He's got to be able to run. And from what I hear, the kid that they brought in, he can run. And they do. Some of these guys are really safeties that went in the weight room a few days. That's all it is. But you have the game. The game has changed. It's not the same game that we played where like on first and second down they were probably going to run the ball, and then third down they're going to throw the ball. That's the way the game used to be. Now they could throw the ball on first down. You're not surprised at all. They could throw the ball 3 consecutive downs. They're going to have pass type of a set in there where you've got 3 wide receivers in there on first down. So it's a different game. And the linebackers have got to be able to run. If they can't run, they're a liability. You can't have them out there.
JAKIB, I again apologize for running 247 by you before and kind of
stumping you. That's no problem. That's no problem. I just, I never really thought about that much, to see. But so that's why you got me on that one. But
and again, my bad. I apologize for that.
It's okay.
So instead, let's finish up with a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Garry Cobb being drafted in 2022 instead. And the NFL reaches out and says, Garry, we'd like you to come up on stage, you get an invite. All expenses paid by the NFL to go out to Las Vegas. Now we're taking the 22-year-old Garry Cobb who was drafted and moving him to 2022. What are you doing in Vegas the day before the draft? They're taking you out there. They're paying the tab. You got some downtime. What is the 22-year-old JAKIB doing in Vegas?
Well, I happen to know a lot of people in Vegas, but I probably would go out. I'm going to go out. I'm going to go get me a good meal. I'm going to go out and check out the casinos and things and see what's happening. Just to go out and see. I might go see one of the shows. They got some great artists that are always out there. It's a good time every time I go out there. So I'll probably go out and enjoy the nightlife a little bit and get ready to get drafted.
There you go. And he was drafted, a couple of years ago, 40. And put 10 solid years into the league. He's been a staple.
11. 11.
Oh, I shortchanged you. My bad.
It's okay.
First, I hit you with 247, then I chopped the year right off your career. That's all my bad. G, we appreciate it whenever you come on. Thanks for coming on today, bud. Enjoy the draft stuff. We'll get you on after the draft goes down.
Sounds good.
That's Garry Cobb here with us on Birds 365. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We're your Mac and Mac guys. Come back. Got a couple more things I got to run by Johnny Mac leading up to the media availability today by Howie Roseman. What do we...
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Johnny McMullen, Jody McDonald, Mac and Mac on Birds 365 here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. You stick around all day long. We're going to have the guys in the middle coming up with the RBD.
RBD. Yeah, you got to get used to it instead of RBD. So we got Rob Ellis. B would be Rick Brooks, and D
Big
would be
Barrett.
Eric Gunn. The sports take at 12 to 3. Dan Cilio's show, the national football show, 3 to 6. And we kick it all off here, Jody. Birds 365. Jody McDonald and some other guy.
Yeah, the other guy who didn't shave a year off Garry Cobb's career, that would be John McMullen. And by the way, again, always like catching up with Cheeks, fun dude, and he knows his stuff inside out as a former NFL player. What do you think the percentage of players are that have ever played in the National Football League? And it's an ever-growing number because we got more teams than we ever did now, and you got practice squad guys who can jump right in and play, and doesn't mean they're going to have a long and prosperous career, but they can say they played in the National Football League. What do you think the percentage of guys who played 11 years in the league is?
Oh, not a lot. I wouldn't even know where to start, but I'd say 10% or lower.
I would say less than 10. I was going to say somewhere between 5 and 10.
Yeah,
percent of the players.
Low.
So if you're in that group, that significantly small group of players who logged 11 years in the league, that's an accomplishment. And I shaved a year right off of him, so I need to apologize for that to G-Cobb. All right, J-Mac, Howie Roseman's going to talk to the media today. You guys will fire whatever questions you can come up with that will try and give us at least a hazy picture of what the Eagles are going to do with the draft. How much of the concentration of today's media session, and we'll surely be talking about it tomorrow here on Birds 365, is going to be on what the Eagles haven't done in free agency yet so far this year? No, they got Hassan Reddick. I really do like the Kazir White signing. The bringing it back, running it back, Derek Barnett, Anthony Harris signing is not exciting anyone. It's not exciting me, and I don't think it's exciting many people. I know at the owners' meeting, Howie did say this is a marathon, not a sprint. The offseason is we're a long time before week 1 of the NFL. Oh, I can tell you exactly how long. 114 days before the first Sunday in the National Football League. How is Howie going to dodge the questions about how you haven't really upgraded the roster all that much this offseason? You better hit some home runs during the draft. How's that going to go today?
Well, you've already seen it. I mean, Howie got some of those questions at the combine, then at the league meet as well. So, he's always what you just said. He constantly goes back to this is a long process. This is talent gathering season. In August, he'll talk about trades and the past. Ronald Darby. We've been able to add players later in the process. Blah blah blah. Yada yada yada. You talked about JAKIB playing in the NFL for years. Well, Howie Roseman's been a GM for a long time as well. And with experience comes a little bit of wisdom or whatever you want to call it, but it's he's certainly able to handle things like that. So, you try to phrase things. If I were going to talk about that, I'd say obviously, when you start free agency, you have a plan. Plans don't generally go in this league the way you want them to, because he's not going to talk about specifics. He might talk about Calvin Ridley or somebody like that because he got suspended. But obviously, things haven't gone the way you projected or wanted. How does that shift your thinking in the draft? Maybe you can get him to say something that way. That's how you gotta whittle with things and phrase things to potentially get information out, because again, it's not going to be about specific players. Now, look, some knucklehead's going to say, "Hey, what do you think of so and so?" And they're, they might give you a couple says, but that's how I try to go about these things. Try to get them to talk about themes and what's going on with the team, and even that's probably not going to work, to be honest.
All right, one question I hope is asked today, and I'm pretty sure it will be. I got a text yesterday from this McMullen guy in the middle of the day who told me that the details had come out on the Rodney McLeod signing.
Yeah, not much.
A 1-year deal for less than $1.8 million. What is even the veteran minimum for a guy who's been in the league?
That's probably it? That's it. Yeah, I mean, Rodney's 32. We taught it. He's got 2 ACL injuries. There wasn't going to be this big push for him anywhere in the league, and that's proven out to be. And I don't think the Eagles made a bad decision. They said we're going to keep. That's basically a part of their plan that went to plan, in the fact that they came into the process and said we're going to sign one of them. They signed Anthony Harris. They thought he was the better option. I kind of and by the way, I didn't think they would sign Anthony Harris. I thought they would sign Rodney McLeod because of the romanticism of his work in the community and what he's meant for the organization, whereas Anthony just got here. So I think that was a prudent football decision. But now we got to see the back end of that. Like, okay, that was your plan. You're going to sign one, but then you got to get another safe. And whether that's going to be Honey Badger after the draft or it's going to be a draft choice, you have to see how that part of it shakes out. But yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with them not bringing
if he signed for the veteran minimum, the one thing that we're 99% sure of is the Eagles didn't even make him an offer, because Rodney was a good Philadelphia guy, charitable work here, seemed to really enjoy being a Philadelphia guy. So if he was going to have to settle for the veteran minimum, it'd be better to settle where you're already settled, and that would have been right here in Philadelphia. So if the Eagles didn't even come up with a veteran minimum offer, they were, as you just stated, married to the idea of we're bringing one back and we're upgrading the other position. And when they signed Anthony Harris, they had already declared which of the two they were bringing back, which, by the way, I disagree with you on the football side. I think Rodney McLeod will have a better year this upcoming year than Anthony Harris. I know he's getting old, and neither one, they're both 1-year commitments, so the comparison is exactly the same for both. I think Rodney's got a little bit more in the tank. I saw improvement over the course of the year, so I think he was still recovering from the. Now, if Rodney goes out and blows out his knee week 2, I'm going to have to eat crow here, because that should be part of the analysis you do. What is the chance the guy's going to break down on us again? And yes, Rodney is much more a candidate to do that than Anthony Harris. But I just thought, if you're talking about who do you think can perform better in the 2022 season, I would have rolled the dice with Rodney McLeod. No romanticism attached to it. Just the fact I think he's got a little bit more in the tank than does Anthony Harris. But that's my football evaluation. You threw out the name of the one DB who's still out there who could absolutely upgrade the safety position for you, and that's the Honey Badger. No talk, no movement, no more whispers about him going in and meeting with a team. This has officially been shut down till after the draft, hasn't it?
I think so. And I think that's from Tyran's standpoint as well. He would rather see the situation of a team maybe gets a little bit desperate, because that's what happens after the draft. You go in there and say, okay, we want to get a safety. There's not a ton of safeties in this draft that you can say they might be good long-term projects or prospects. But as far as guys you want to play right away, which would be the Eagles would be in that category, and a number of other teams. Well, you're talking about Kyle Hamilton. You're talking about the kid from Michigan, Hill, and then, there's Lewis Seen. Penn State's got a good safety. There's a couple good prospects, but other than the top two, you're not saying, oh, this guy's going to start right away and be a star. Hey, a couple years ago, Antoine Winfield Jr. came in as a second-round pick, hit the ground running, and became a really, really good player. So it's not like it can't happen, but I don't know if you can go into that and be comfortable with one of those other names and say, all right, no doubt about it, this guy's a starter. So then you get to the desperation mode. That's where a guy like maybe Matthew can better deal after the draft. And, the Eagles' perspective is probably, well, let's see if we can get the cost-effective option. And if we can't, we'll go back, and then we'll see where the market is. So each side is sort of gambling a little bit on what's going to happen.
We'll see how the safety position shakes out for the Birds. Chances are, if they're not getting Kyle Hamilton, which you and I can both cross our fingers and hope and believe that he's actually going to fall down to 15, because we're both big fans of his game. I don't think they're going safety with either of those two picks at 15 or 18 if Kyle Hamilton is not the guy. I did see a consensus mock on CBSSports.com today, which a lot of times are actually, at least for my taste, better, because any one guy can have a great mock or a bad mock. You don't know who it is. But if you use several and just do a consensus divide between where they're picked up, these ones seem to be closer to actually what happens on draft day. And CBS used 12 of their guys to come up with a consensus mock draft. And here were the Eagles picks at number 15, Jamison Williams, the wide receiver from Alabama, who could fall down to number 15 because he's coming in off the injury at the end of the season. A lot of people had him ranked before the injury as the number one wide receiver in this draft. So if you're getting a player of that former ranking and rating, that's not a bad deal in number 15. And George Karlaftis from Purdue, edge rusher, coming in at number 18. If those are the two picks that the Eagles end up with, John McMullen, how do you think they did?
I would like that. I'm a big fan of Jamison Williams specifically. And, the Eagles have kind of said it's not about this year, right? So I'm willing to wait for the best receiver in the draft. So I like that part of it. Karlaftis is interesting because I think it's a need. I think it's a good player. I haven't got sense that the Eagles have tremendous in them as opposed to the other edge rushers. Now, maybe that's the subterfuge, and maybe they're trying to throw people off. So we'll see how that shakes out. I think it would be a good pick for the Eagles. I don't think the Eagles like him, but that's just my speculation. And we'll see how that shakes out. But I think it on a personal level, I think it would be a good haul in the first, and I'd be really excited about Jamison Williams.
All right, let me ask you about the wide receiver position, because that is something the Eagles are going to consider. We continue to point out that Zach Pascal is the veteran wide receiver that they've added to this point, no matter how many guys they were quote unquote in on or attempted to acquire or talk to or made free agent offers to. The addition so far has been Zach Pascal, the teacher's pet of the coach. So if they take a wide receiver with one of their 2 first-round picks, nobody's going to be too surprised. If you want to, you could put Jahan Dotson in the mix and make it 6 deep from Penn State. I draw the line more so at 5. I think Dotson is the 6th, and there's a little bit of a drop-off. If you disagree with me, please tell me so. But rank the top 5 wide receivers for me. I don't want to put them in an order because I don't want to try and influence you. I think you know what 5 receivers I'm talking about. How would you rank them for the Eagles? Not overall, but fit for the Eagles, because that is a bit of a factor. You can't just dismiss that. I don't put as much stock into it as some other people do. But give me your ranking of the wide receivers. What do you think the Eagle draft board is going to look like at wide receiver come day 1 of the draft?
Yeah, I try to take my biases out of this because, I've said, look, I don't want Drake London, but it partially is because of JJ, and that's not Drake London's fault. And I don't want Traylon Burks partially because of Jalen Reagor, and that's not Traylon Burks' fault. But for the Eagles, I would say Jamison Williams 1, Olave 2, Garrett Wilson 3, Drake London 4, Traylon Burks 5, and I gave you the reasons on Drake and Traylon. I like Olave's route running better than Wilson's, and I say it all the time. I want route runners, man. Until I have a coaching staff, until I see a coaching staff that can take advantage of manufactured touches and manufactured stuff, I want route runners, because I know route runners can get separation and get open and just put them out at their normal positions, and they can be effective. So that's why I lean towards those 2 guys, Williams and Olave, more than the other 3.
Yeah, we're close. We've got number 4 and number 5 in the exact same order. I think Garrett Wilson is the best wide receiver in this draft. He's a combination of the things you mentioned. If Olave is a better route runner, which I'm not sure he is, but if you even work with that assumption to start, Wilson's got more explosion. Wilson gets behind defenses. If you're going to use a first-round draft pick again, get us a guy who actually does make big plays rather than we're projecting he makes big plays like Jalen Reagor. And Wilson was the bigger playmaker this year for Ohio State over Olave when they were paired together on the outside for the Buckeyes. So I would take Wilson 1. I would take Williams 2. And, yeah, probably would have been Williams 1, but the injury is the injury. And wide receivers certainly come back from that injury. Most of them do. Not all of them do, and that's why there's a little trepidation. And that's why I put Wilson ahead of Williams, Olave 3. I've gotten calls on WIP about, Drake London. The Eagles need a big wide receiver. They need the Alshon Jeffries replacement. Do people forget that Alshon, when he first came in, didn't exactly light the world on fire? That after the Super Bowl, he sure as hell didn't he lit teammates on fire more than he did the world on fire. That the Alshon years here had certain high points, agreed to that, but people have just forgotten about the low points, which, by the way, that doesn't even matter because it's a different person we're talking about here.
Yeah.
That they need to draft a guy purely because he's 2 inches bigger and has an extra inch in his catch radius on each end. And no, give me the player who's better. Give me the player who's achieved more. Give me the player who's got better ability to get open. That's why I like all 3 of the other wide receivers rather than London. And I'm glad to hear you said you kind of, I'm assuming here, because I know early in the process when the draft, after the season ended, we started talking about wide receivers. You kind of like Burks, and I don't remember
I
if you
still
like
like
him
him
individually or you like him.
I don't
for
like
the
him for the Eagles. I still like him as a player. I don't like him for the Eagles. Like if San Francisco has to trade Deebo Samuel, I want him in San Francisco.
Okay, well, that I would understand, but there's only one San Francisco in the league. There's only one guy who's done with Deebo what he's done. So there's 31 other teams that may end up with Burks, and good luck with them getting the most out of it. Yeah, I think that's a bit of a reach. As a first-round pick, I think he's a reach. He would be a reach for me for every team but San Francisco, as you just stated, because they've already proven they can do things like that were done with him in Arkansas. Yeah, I didn't see separation from him. He's got the good catch radius. He's got the good size. And yes, he's got a little girth to him. If you hand him the ball, he might actually be able to break a tackle. The NFL doesn't do that much.
No, they don't. But I do think it is an evolving position. And I do think there's a sliding scale. You're right. San Francisco's at the top of it. But I do think there's other teams that could at least utilize it a little bit better than certain other teams that are local or have not proven to be able to take advantage of that. Like everybody throws the bubble screen. Forget about the San Francisco stuff. Everybody throws the bubble screen. It's the most annoying play in football from my perspective, because I have to watch the Eagles run it all the time. And it's the ugliest play in football when it doesn't work. When it does work, it's pretty good. Everybody runs it. And there are teams so there's sort of a sliding scale. And I think we talked about with Cobb evolving linebackers, they're really that go in the weight room, he said, for a couple of days. Same things happen on the offensive side of the ball. More and more teams will start to go in that direction, and they'll get better and better at it. So this is sort of, you're right, it's a bit of a projection. You haven't seen a ton of success with it, but you see a ton of success with it at the college level. And that's where stuff, I always say, it's the opposite of the real world. Innovation trickles up. It doesn't trickle down. The innovative people are at the college level, and some people will tell you the real innovations at the high school level when it comes to offensive. And it's a slow trickle up, a slow move up to the NFL, but it's starting to get there. And players like Treylon Burks are going to be more and more important to every team, not just San Francisco.
Yeah, but the problem with taking things from college and or high school, you get to the NFL, you got bigger, faster defensive players out there. They just are.
That no doubt, it's a higher level, but the themes are already here. I mean, NFL offenses, they used to, behind the scenes, they would say, oh, you would hear the gruff talk. That's college bullshit, bull bleep, blah, blah, blah. Now it's like, we better do this, better do that, because we're getting left behind. And all of a sudden you start talking about, people complain about, well, quarterbacks can't go through their reads. So now they're starting to, well, they can't do that. So let's do what they do well. All that stuff, zone reads. The shift has already begun, Jody. It's becoming more and more like college football by the day. I don't like it. I think it's an ugly brand of football. I don't like it from an aesthetic standpoint, but it's coming. So you either embrace it and get good at it, or you're going to get left behind.
Key thing you said there is get good at it. And at least the way I observed the Eagles last year, they weren't good at it.
No, they weren't.
And, oh, by the way, they got certain guys on the offensive line who should be real good at it. Jason Kelsey. We were told they got really good blocking wide receivers, which is a key to bubble screens and getting the ball out quick. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Why didn't it work for the Eagles? Oh, maybe it was because the guy who was catching the ball just wasn't really all that good, Jalen Reagor. All right, quickie timeout here. Come back. Our boy Ed Kracz scheduled to join us, Mr. Eagles Maven on Sports Illustrated. He's heading down to the NovaCare complex to hear from Howie Roseman as well. Ed Kracz next here on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
You got Jody McDonald, John McMullen, and our co-compatriot there from Sports Illustrated, Eagles maven, Ed Kracz here with us. What were you drinking, Kracz?
Just a little bit. Take a guess. My Yeti mug.
Little coffee there, I would assume.
A little coffee, yeah.
Yeti's
Not happy hour yet, I'm afraid. Not happy hour yet.
Thought maybe you were going stronger on us. I'm glad to hear it's just caffeine.
Well, it's pretty strong. It's pretty strong coffee.
Give you the Yeti mug back in the day. Carson was a big Yeti guy.
No, I think this just was, just a Christmas present from someone, one of my kids.
I thought it was Carson. That's why.
No, he's not one of my kids.
All right, Kracz, I got to give you credit because you're going down with the ship. Your latest article on SI once again. What if the Eagles were to take a quarterback in the first round?
Yeah.
Good for you. Even though you're just woefully wrong, you're not getting off that ship. You're going down with it, and I appreciate your stick-to-itiveness.
Yeah. Now, all aboard the SS Minnow, huh?
Well, hey, how many darts you want at the dartboard?
It's just such an unpredictable draft. And I kind of couched that, Jody, the trade or the drafting of a quarterback with a trade up into the top 10. If Ahmad Gardner is still there after the Panthers probably take Pickett or Willis or whoever at quarterback, then the Giants are on the clock. And, the Eagles and Giants don't have a great trade history together. I think they made a deal back in 2018 that landed the Giants the immortal Ramses Barden, the wide receiver, in the third round. And the Eagles got a couple extra picks later, which they eventually dealt for other picks. But, who's to say they couldn't? I know the Giants, Joe Schoen, the new GM there, there's a lot of talk about him wanting to trade out of that spot and move down and pick up some extra collateral perhaps next year. So who's to say the Eagles don't try to jump up and grab Ahmad Gardner at 7 if he's still there? I've seen mock drafts where he's gone in the top 5. Again, the unpredictability of this whole draft is probably more so than it's ever been in my years covering the draft. You just can't get a consensus on the top 10 guys. And, the quarterbacks are a big reason why. So who's to say if the Eagles don't trade up and maybe they have to send one of their first round picks that they got from the Saints for next season, I don't think they'll do that. But what if they do? And then they'll say, you know what? We really like Desmond Ridder or Malik Willis or who's ever, Kenny Pickett, if he's still there at 18. Then we grab him and we accelerate our quarterback timeline and we start developing him along with Jalen Hurts. That's all I'm saying.
By the way, you talk about the history lines. You have to Brandon Brown's there now, so maybe that changes things as well. He has a good relationship with Howie Roseman, so maybe those avenues are more open. I do think there's a chance the Eagles trade up, but I think it's going to be very targeted, very much like last year. If they have 4 or 5 players on the board and there's only one left that they really, really like and they think it drops off to the next tier, then I think you could see a Devontae Smith-like move. And I get the feeling, I get the sense it's one of 3 players. You mentioned one, Gardner. The other 2 would be Jordan Davis, Yvonne Thibodeau. And I don't think Thibodeau is going to fall that far. So that would leave Jordan Davis and maybe as an outside chance, Derek Stingley. I haven't gotten a feel how much they like Derek Stingley, but they obviously have a significant need at the position. As far as that kind of targeted move up, and last year they gave up, what was it, a 3rd round pick to go up and get Devontae. They went up 2 spots. I could see that. I think that would be the Howie modus operandi. If he were to go up a couple spots, you like that group of players named for the Eagles?
Yeah, I do. Listen, I keep coming back to last year when the Eagles really liked Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn and tried to get up to take one of those guys. I mean, they had a list of 5 players they liked in the top 10, and they were 2, and Kyle Pitts was another. And then, of course, Devontae Smith, he was one as well, and
Jalen Waddle. Yeah,
right. And Waddle. And those 4 were gone. So that's why they made that move up, was to get one of those players that they had a top 10 grade on, and didn't cost them too much to jump up to. Now, if you're going to trade up, maybe a small move, if, Jordan Davis starts to drop, or even Kyle Hamilton. Again, there's another, unpredictable name in this draft as the safety from Notre Dame is where's he going to slot in here? But maybe the Vikings at 12, they can investigate, maybe a 3-step jump to get to the 12th pick with the Vikings. If, one of these guys, maybe they had a top 10 or top 12 grade on, is still sitting there. But again, my feeling on trying to trade up and get up as high as you can get is to get a cornerback. I'm not sure about Stingley. We had Mark Dominic, the former front office executive. We talked to him on a conference call yesterday, and he likes Stingley better than Gardner. He thinks he's got a better ceiling than Gardner has, and it's based on that 2019 tape. And, I'm not sure. Yeah. But again, if there's Stingley and Gardner and you like those guys as top 10 picks and you missed out as the Eagles last year on Horn and Surtain, then what's to say they don't try to make a bold move up to get one of those corners, because they missed on 2 last year. And it's a clear need that they have, not only to play opposite Slay this year, but Slay's in his 30s now. He's costing them a big dime. You're going to eventually have to replace him too. So, why not make that bold move up if you can?
If Stingley and Sauce both come off the board too high for a spot that the Eagles to be able to trade up to, I think there's a better chance the Eagles trade down and trade up. And I think it's got a chance to be like John just described, the trade up comparing to last year's. I think they're going to try and do something similar here. I think they don't want to get too far down from 15, but if they were to drop down to 17 and still stay ahead of the Saints, they'd give the Saints the leg up on them for 1 pick, but they'd stay ahead of them for another one, get the old back-to-back pick thing working for them, which gives you some flexibility in the life. I don't know what the Chargers' desire would be. Maybe for a wide receiver. I know they re-signed Williams, but I think the Saints are probably going wide receiver. I think there's a better chance the Eagles trade back a couple of picks than trade up a couple of picks. How about you, Ed?
Yeah, I could see that, Jody, for sure. Maybe staying put at 15 and let the draft come to them, see how it unfolds, and then just take, a player that you have, targeted in that range at 15. And then with that 18th pick, perhaps move back a few spots, maybe with the Packers. They probably would like to have a wide receiver after losing Devontae Adams and Marcus Scandrick Valdez, or whatever his name is, John
Valdez Scantling.
Right, Valdez Scantling. Those hyphenated names always give me trouble. But yeah, I could see that, Jody. I could see them maybe going maybe Packers, maybe the Chiefs. The Chiefs have 2 picks at the end of the first round, and then maybe trying getting an early second round pick in order to do that, and that kind of gives them another pick in a pretty good range in the top 50 or 51, because they would pick at 51. So yeah, I could absolutely see that. And maybe if they trade back, then they target someone like a receiver like George Pickens from Georgia, or even a safety, dare we say. I'm high on Dax Hill. I have been from the jump. I think he'd be a great fit for this defense. But the Eagles just never draft safeties in the first round. But maybe their feelings changed on that. Of course, we say that every year with the linebacker, and they never take a linebacker either.
Yeah. Well, today's the day. Howie Roseman is going to speak. Nick Sirianni. And by the way, Jody, you'll be in this. Andy Weidel is out sick, so he is not going
out sick, is he?
But
it's conspiracy? Are you?
Yeah.
I'm going there.
Pittsburgh Steelers obviously have interviewed Andy to be their general manager. Kevin Colbert is retiring after the draft. Jerry Dulac, who's one of the most plugged in reporters, has already speculated that Andy is the leader in the clubhouse. So we'll see how things shake out. But it is a little bit strange. So hopefully Andy's okay. Hopefully it's just non-COVID and all that kind of stuff. But so Hacker speaking today, and that's why you got to get out of here a little bit early, Ed. What do you want to hear from them first and foremost about this particular draft? Understanding they're not. Hey, we're going to take Jordan Davis. What do you want to get out of the Eagles brass about this draft process?
I'd like to probably follow up a little bit more on the linebacker position. I know out in Indianapolis at the Combine, Howie talked about the needs for the defense have changed a bit with Jonathan Gannon in the head chair there at the defensive coordinator. So he mentioned linebackers could possibly be in play. And, again, here we go. They haven't taken one, but if Devin Lloyd is sitting there, or even the Kobe Dean, I love Lloyd. I mean, that guy, 8 sacks, 4 interceptions last year. He can cover tight ends. But I would kind of like to drill down a little bit on the linebacker and how they feel about those 2 linebackers in particular. And if yes, as they get closer to the draft, do they feel that those 2 guys could be in play based on what Jonathan Gannon likes to have. And even the safeties, I've seen Lewis Seen, the Georgia safety, mentioned as a possibility as well for the Eagles. Dax Hill. I mean, I'd like to kind of bear down a little bit on the safety and the linebacker spot. And if things have changed, not only within their building, but within the NFL in general, when you look at, some of the money the safeties commanded in the offseason, doesn't it make sense now to kind of bring somebody in on your own to have under control for 4 or 5 years and let develop in whatever system you're running? So that's kind of what I want to hear a little bit about. And then, of course, I'm sure there'll be plenty of receiver talk. Do the Eagles have enough there? Are they really going to take another receiver in the first round for the 3rd straight year and, go down the same road Matt Millen went down that led to his departure from the Lions in 2008 after he took 4 receivers in 5 years? I mean, you just can't keep doing that. But I get it. I get why they would do it. They want to put some stuff around Hurts. So, wide receiver, certainly another area that I would like to see explored with Howie and company today.
I took a little bit of a shot from one of our loyal streamers on the comment section today that I don't like big wide receivers, because I said I don't like big wide receivers because they're big. If they're big and they can play. Oh, if they're Calvin Johnson, I love those type of wide receivers. I just think there are a couple wide receivers in this draft that are better wide receivers than the bigger guys, which are London and Burks. I don't want to go wide receiver yet. I want to finish up with safety. We have seen that the 2 Eagle safety starters last year both went into free agency. Both, as per the market, were given 1-year contracts, one to come back to the Eagles, the other one to go to the Colts. And Anthony Harris got a better payday out of it than Rodney McLeod did. Those numbers came out on McLeod's deal yesterday with the Colts. very comparable, and they both got 1-year contracts. Did the Eagles keep the better guy? And we know they kept the more expensive guy. The $1 million and change difference isn't going to exactly move the needle. And oh my God, the Eagles are in cap hell now because they gave Anthony Harris $3 million. So I don't want to overstate it, but he did get more than McLeod. Eagles make the right decision if they had decided ahead of time, we're re-signing one, we're letting the other one walk. Did they get it right?
I think in theory you could say they got it right. We'll see how that translates onto the field. But again, Harris is younger by a year and a half. He doesn't have the injury history McLeod had. And at the end of the season last year in Tampa, when their season ended in the playoffs, Rodney talked about how it was kind of a struggle with the knee. Coming back from the knee, and he lost a step. Let's face it, he wasn't the same player on the field as he had been in previous years. So, Harris doesn't have that injury limitation, or so I think that, yes, in theory, they probably made the right call taking Harris or re-signing Harris over Rodney McLeod. Now, I love, Rodney was a great player for this organization. Clearly, they lost him and Brandon Brooks, the two big free agent stars from 2016 that helped them win a Super Bowl. McLeod was the guy that broke down the team, in the pregame on the field huddle after warm-up, so they're going to have to find somebody else to do it. But I just think physically Harris was the correct signing. We'll see if that plays out on the field if, he does prove to be the better signing. Because, we'll be watching the Colts this year with McLeod there and, some of the other players that they have, obviously Frank Reich. So we'll see McLeod and we'll see Harris and we'll see who has the better season.
Understandably so. So we talk about drafts that focus, they get hyper focused on this draft, 2022, and it's pretty obvious the Eagles have a longer term plan, and the fact that spun off one of their 3 first-round picks into next year with the Saints, they were able to get that accomplished, which we all speculated they probably wanted to do. So Howie gets a check mark for that. Brandon Graham was on with us here, JAKIB Media, yesterday on the Sports Take show. And BG, well, we saw BG back in, he looked like he was ready to play. Remember, I mean, he was moving around. Well, he was his usual effusive self, but he indicated he wants to play 3 more years. He wants to get to 15 years in the NFL, which would be quite the career. We were just talking about we had Cobb on. He made it to 11 years. I don't know if I can see BG making it 15 here. This upcoming season will be year number 13. How much does the futures of players like Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, these entrenched players who are, let's face it, they're closer to the end than the beginning. How much does that affect this draft, the upcoming drafts, and put those positions, defensive end, defensive tackle, interior offensive line, into play?
Yeah, well, something you have to look at, no doubt. And that's why they could be in play for an offensive lineman, not necessarily in the first round, but, as the draft rolls along, maybe even on the second day, because Kelsey and Lane Johnson are both, in their 30s now. And you look at the defensive line, Fletcher Cox, year to year now, really, he's in his 30s. Brandon Graham, it's all well and good to say I want to play 15 years, but you have to show that you can go out and, be successful and can, contribute for those next 3 seasons that he has left before he hits that mark. And I don't know. I mean, he's 34 now and he has the Achilles, and, he's known for his explosion, off the line of scrimmage, and we'll see if he can, achieve that. I don't know. Eventually Father Time wins out unless you're Tom Brady, and, you can talk all you want that, I want to play 15 years, but you got to go out and show that you can still be a contributing player. And, I'm still, the jury's not out on Brandon as much as I like him, personally off the field and stuff. I mean, he needs to go out and show that he can be as effective as he once was. And, he's never had a double-digit sack season, right? I mean, in 12 years, he's never had 10 sacks. And, is he going to threaten that mark, or is he going to be a 5-sack guy? And you need more from your defensive ends, in my opinion.
All right, Eddie, last one for me. knowing what kind of a Vegas guy you are, what tickets you already have lined up to what shows next weekend in Las Vegas? Or are you going to be playing the secondary ticket market?
Well, Lady Gaga is in Vegas until May 1st.
Yeah.
Another 2
Is she
weeks
in the NovaCare Media House? Then maybe we'll get to see her.
No, I think we'll have Jordan Mailata playing the ukulele is what I'll be.
That's not bad. Jordan
No,
could
I would
sing.
take that.
That's not bad. Yeah, I'll
Singing
take
to Bob.
that.
Yeah, but I'll be in Philadelphia with John. I mean, it's no
Yeah,
sense in going out to
you
Vegas.
didn't get the Vegas assignment? You didn't talk your way into the Vegas assignment, Kracz?
We'll have a couple people out there, but it won't be me. I really didn't put in for it. I mean, the best place to be is right here in good old Philadelphia, and
until they put the COVID lab right next to us, so I'm a little worried about that. We're ground zero.
Speaking of which, did you see this? I just saw this morning. Not like Ed Kracz, not going to be in Vegas for the draft. Mel Kiper.
Yeah, he didn't get vaccinated. Mel can't go.
He didn't get vaccinated.
Yeah. So he's
now
got to
that
stick
doesn't
back
fit the usual grouping of who does and doesn't get vaccinated. More young people don't believe in the vaccine. Mel's a 60-year-old guy who took a stand and goes, no. I don't need this vaccination stuff.
Maybe he just wants some crab cakes. He's in Maryland. He'll have some fun. Just stay at home. You never go wrong with crab cakes. But I'll end it here with Ed because he's got to run down to the NovaCare complex. Follow him on online Twitter at Kratzy, SI.com/NFL/Eagles. Find Ed's coverage, my coverage there. We'll have all the news about Howie and Nick. No, Andy Weidel. Conspiracy theory. So let's end it there. Ed, is Andy Weidel going to be the next GM of the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I think there's a real good shot. Yeah. Jody could be right. This could be the phasing out of Andy Weidel at this stage, and he could be, on a one-way ticket to Pittsburgh on May 1st or whenever I guess it's May 1st, Sunday.
May 1st,
yeah. I know Jerry Dulac. He and I used to work together when we were at the Pittsburgh Press years and years ago. So yeah, he is a plugged in dude. So I believe that he very well could be Pittsburgh bound, no doubt.
Eddie, good stuff. Always a pleasure, bud. Safe over to the NovaCare complex. And you don't need a mask anymore because the NFL has decided COVID's over and done with. So keep that smiling face out there.
Yeah, but bring one anyway because Philadelphia is the mask man. I don't even know anymore.
What they showed a shot from the Sixers game, game 2 Monday night, I think, and there was like 5 people in a crowd of 20,000 people that were wearing masks. So I don't know what the rules are and aren't.
Personal choice. It's up to you, Ed Kracz. Thanks for coming on with us today, buddy. Appreciate
it.
Guys.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Ed.
Ed Kracz here with us on Birds 365. My wife is done with the whole COVID thing. She's more NFL than she knows. The COVID is actually over and done with. Sure enough, she came back on a plane over the weekend and they dropped the mask mandate on Monday. She flew on Sunday, hasn't flown for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, however long it's been. She gets on a plane, got to wear a mask. Sunday, Monday, no more masks necessary around the country.
If there's one place I might not mind wearing a mask, it's on a plane. Planes are disgusting, Jody. There is just germ infested and you're in this tube. There's nowhere you can go. I don't mind it on the plane. Now, I don't want it in the airports, and it's the opposite now. And where some airports still have it, you got to get on the plane. You can talk, which makes no sense. The whole thing has made no sense, but
it's all about mindset. And I would, prefer not to wear a mask on a plane for one simple reason. I'm a little claustrophobic, and a plane is a little bit tight knit to begin with anyway. So I would really like to breathe free in a claustrophobic, tight knit place to begin with. But I haven't been on a plane in 4 years myself, so I don't have to worry about that. Johnny Mack be flying all over the country, following the Eagles this year. He's flying down to the NovaCare complex. We'll come back and talk about if we can learn anything from the Eagles with their last media availability before the draft next here on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
You got Mac and Mac here with you on Birds 365. Yes, we will ask one more time today. Hit that like button, share, and subscribe to the Birds 365 guys here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. We could always use a little pat on the back. Some guys need a kick in the you-know-where, and others need a pat on the back.
I need a pat on the back, Jody. I need pats on the back. I don't need a kick in the ass.
There are times that I need both. And I've had some good coaches in life that have been able to determine when that was the correct time to go which direction, and other coaches that couldn't coach.
I'm a delicate flower. I need positive enforcement.
I'm a guy who can every once in a while benefit from a kick in the tail, but today would not be one of those days. We need you to like us here on Birds 365. Hit that button for us. Yes, I mentioned this earlier in the show, and John confirmed during the show that Andy Weidel will not be part of the contingent talking to the media today. I thought there was the possibility that that would be the case, that he is already entrenched in making the change to Pittsburgh after the draft is over and done with. And if that is the case, want to wish him the best of luck. He's joining a pretty good organization. They got to find a quarterback, so I don't know that they're going to be great next year, but it's a very good organization to work because they do stand behind their people and give them long periods of time to prove that they can or can't get the job done. And the reason why I believe this, Johnny, is if you're Howie Roseman, and it's his show today, let's not kid ourselves, it's the Howie Roseman show, and he will determine who is up there with him and who he's going to allow to speak about the Eagles' upcoming draft other than himself. If Andy Weidel was okay to talk to, I want Andy Weidel up there with me, because that's one less question that I have to answer. Any question that goes Andy Weidel's way, I don't have to answer it. So that's a good thing.
Well, it could be Occam's razor, which is the simplest explanation, is usually the right one. He just might be out sick. That's what the Eagles said. It's a possibility. I mean, I will say the tradition is dating back to when Joe Douglas came in, was to have all three, the head coach, the vice president of player personnel, and Howie. And every year, even through COVID, it's been that way, via Zoom during the COVID times. But and this will be the first year since ending the job that he will not be doing this. So, people get sick. So when I get down there, I'll try to, see if it's real, see if it's a conspiracy. There are conspiracies as well. So, but I mean, it could be as simple as he's not feeling well. So,
all right, let me give you one more speculative one. You were right, and Sirianni is there, and if Andy Weidel is there, I think that pretty much guarantees that Sirianni's going to be there, because Howie's not going to sit up there by himself.
Oh, Nick's going to be there. Yeah, Nick's going to be there.
Yeah, I got to believe one of the questions for Nick is going to be, in this year's draft class, the wide receivers who are available, do you have a prerequisite for a specific type of wide receiver, either playing a position or a physical makeup, balancing with the wide receiver you already have here, that unbelievably huge upgrade of Zach Pascal into the wide receiver room? Is there a specific type of wide receiver that you're looking for? You think Nick answers that question, gives you a straight answer?
No, well, he's answered it 100 times. He's going to give the same answer. No, we want all our guys to play every position. So you have to play X, you have to play Z, you have to play the slot, blah, blah, blah. That's what he always says. That's what he said consistently since he's gotten here. He says it behind the scenes as well. And, I call shenanigans on that. I mean, it would be nice to have an extra, and that's what some of the fans are talking about when they talk about Alshon Jeffrey or Drake London. Or it would be nice to have that, if you can guarantee you're getting Mike Evans or, somebody of that nature. It would be nice to have that to complement what you have in Devontae Smith. But I think the Eagles are at the point of, we just got to find the best receiver and let the chips fall where they may. When you're really, really good, maybe you can focus it down in that way, but I don't think the Eagles are in that position.
Right. When you've got a roster that's already loaded and you're just drafting for depth at positions, you can get a lot more specific and go, yes, we want this guy with these characteristics because it balances well with our roster. The Eagles aren't there. They need to fill some holes with this year's draft picks, and they've got a couple of them, D-line being one of them. I know there's another one Howie's not going to answer, so I'm asking John McMullen instead. The end, DT. If they've got two players with basically the same grade on the board at either 15, if they take a different position at 15, wide receiver, cornerback, safety, not going to be safety because Kyle Hamilton's not going to drop to him, but they take either a corner or a wide receiver. They go outside rather than inside. They return to their roots and their DNA and go back in to the trenches with their second pick. If it's a DT or a D end and it's the same grade on the board, which way do you think they're going?
Oh, I'm trying to think a player would be who those players would be with the same grade at the top.
Let's say I'll give you the two guys, Karlaftis and Wyatt.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go. Because if you want, let's say they have Hutchinson 1 or Walker 1, and the other one would be 2, Thibodeau 3, Johnson 4, Davis 5. Then you'd be down to Wyatt or Karlaftis. I would think they would take. Boy, that's a tough one. I haven't sensed, like I said earlier in the show, I haven't sensed any interest in Karlaftis, but I would take Karlaftis over Devontae Wyatt. I've sensed more interest in Wyatt, but you mentioned some of those things coming out in recent days that might factor into it. But I personally would rather have Karlaftis if those were my options.
And I did see one report because the first time I saw any question about him potentially falling, and I'm talking about Devontae Wyatt, falling down draft boards was yesterday morning. And I did a little bit more research last night and this morning as well. I did see one report where he had a domestic violence incident.
Well, that could be it.
No major details on when or how big an incident it was. We know for a fact that he didn't get caught on video, because if he did, it would be everywhere. And yeah, that can be a career-ending type thing if you get caught on video with a domestic violence in it. So we don't know to what extent it was, or even when it came down. But a couple different outlets have reported that there are teams that have certainly soured on Devontae White, and he was one of the first guys the Eagles brought in. We've continued to stay on top of the pre-draft visits, and yeah, they could still do them even this week leading up to the draft. Wyatt was one of the early guys they came in. And,
today, by the way, is the last day for the top 30 visits.
Is today the last day? I thought it was over the weekend.
Nope, today is the last day for the top 30 visits. So we haven't gotten, I think I was at 18, 19. So there's a bunch that the Eagles brought in and been able to uncover, but today is the final day. I think Kenny Pickett's out in Detroit. I think everybody's focused on the quarterbacks. I just saw, I think Ian tweeted it. I'll try to find it real quick. Matt Corral visiting the Falcons. Malik Willis is visiting the Steelers. Kenny Pickett is visiting the Lions, and today's the last day for top 30 pre-drafts.
All right, I'm going to make a prediction right here, right now, about a player that will be taken in a spot in the upcoming NFL draft. Matt Corral to the Detroit Lions on the 37 pick. Because that last pick in the first round is one that we've seen it happen before. Take a quarterback, get that extra year. Don't have to worry about him walking away after 4. You get to pick up the option on that last year. The Lions need a QB. They're not taking a quarterback at 2, even though they had Malik Willis in.
I'd love to see it. Boy, I'd love to see the uproar. Oh, you get the big to see it. Just throw everybody's
It would be drama-packed if a quarterback went to 2, as we've all badmouthed the quarterback class all year long. No, I do not believe the Lions are taking quarterback at 2, but they will be taking one at 32, and I think Matt Corral is going to be that guy. So he's going to be able to say for his entire career, first-round draft pick.
Desmond Ridder better go before that then, because that's where I got Desmond Ridder going, 32. I think he's higher on NFL teams' boards. He seems to be really well liked around the league, and I think that surprises a lot of people. I think it's because he's more advanced from a progression standpoint, sort of things JAKIB talked about. You got to be able to read defenses, and I think he and Kenny Pickett are more advanced in that part of the game than the other young quarterbacks.
Sorry. I like Matt Corral's upside and potential better than I do Desmond Ridder's. But we'll see. Yeah, you're right. Ridder seems to be a darling of a couple of teams, and we'll see if one of them in the late first round, even before 32, decides to call out his name. All right, I'm calling out your name, dude. Join me tomorrow right here on Birds 365. You in, McMullen?
I'm in. Hopefully I make it back. Gotta go out, Jody.
Grab that mask just in case. Safe down to the NovaCare complex. Yes, you'll get that much more with trying to read between Howie Roseman's lines right here on Birds 365 tomorrow in 2 and 2.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.